City Council special meeting order. I wanted to address the agenda real quick. I'm going to make some slight adjustments here. I think that everybody's probably seen on all the social media, here's what's happening with this project, here's what's happening with this project, and some of that is inaccurate. Some of it, when I've heard to, it's now become, this is what's happening. So I've asked Jeff that after item 4 that we move 2 items from the executive session up into the regular session. So it's on the agenda today, and we'll talk about it in detail afterwards in executive session, but I've asked him to give an update so we can address some of that stuff that's hitting social media right now. The other thing is I want to just mention that's particularly is Pigtail and CS, the two that you'll talk about, have a conversation out in public today. The other thing I want to just mention is that today we're going to talk about some stuff, and everybody is anxious about what the governor decided and then what we're going to do. And so I just want to make sure that what we do as a council, I just want to give a little bit of advice. Let's don't throw out the good to make sure we have perfect. So there's going to be some things that we can come back and adjust later. There's one particular project I think we'll all talk about, which is item, I think it's 3. And so if there's some anxiety over how much, I just want to make sure that you understand we can always come back and adjust, do some more. So, and the other thing I want to make sure is, I just want to say this is my opinion. You know, it would be great if we came out here unanimous on these items today, because that will show the citizens that we're in support of what we're doing as a council and what we're asking the city to do. So that with that said, I'll move to item 1, and I've invited Dr. Doggett to come to us. And would you mind coming to the stand and we talked the other day, and he would like to address the council, so I've afforded him that opportunity to do that.
Yes, I'm wearing a mask. It's hard to recommend it and then not do it.
There you go.
You know, it's really not that bad. You know, the first time you do it and walk in Allsup's, you feel like you're walking in your underwear. You feel like everybody's looking at you like you're a freak. But after you do it a few times, you get used to it.
And that's one of the places when you walk in, they keep you 6 feet apart.
That's right.
If they get a cash register, they tell you back up.
They're doing a very good job.
They are doing a good job.
I may be a little bit premature because I don't know what's going to go on today, but GA 16 supersedes a lot of what we can even do right now. If I'm correct, I mean, I don't think we can make anything looser than what he's saying. We can make it stricter, right?
And only certain things too. There's some items that we have some restrictions on.
Sure. And, you know, and a lot of people think I'm an extremist and want to just shut everything down. That's far from the truth. I mean, what we're doing now is not sustainable for our economy for the long term, and so I just want to be clear that I'm on the record for that. But from what I understand, Governor Abbott, you know, I haven't seen the details because he's going to release those Monday, I believe, but what he said so far sounds very reasonable. He said he's going to be led by the data and the doctors, which, you know, I have no problem with that. He's got an advisory panel of 39 members, 2 of which are Dr. Hellerstedt, who's head of the Texas Department of State Health Services, and then former head of the FDA. There's several physicians on there. Primarily, it's made up of people with business experience. You know, people like Michael Dell, people like that. Drayton McLean. The advisory panel is actually chaired by James Huffines, who's a former bank executive, and he's been chair of the UT System of Board of Regents. So there's a lot of business input, which I think is very important. I think we're gonna get there, but it's kind of like when your boat capsizes and you're in the middle of the lake and you can see the shore and you're swimming for it and it looks like you're going to make it. You don't quit swimming. We have to keep doing what we're doing. So I just want to emphasize that we have to be patient. We have to do what we can. We have to get through this. Could some things be going better? Sure. You know, I don't know how fair it is for a big box store to allow 906 people in, and somebody can't go in a furniture store here with, you know, 10 or 12 people and wear a mask and buy a couch. You know, I don't know how fair that is to our small local businessmen, but that's something that will have to be worked out. But I'm in favor of moving towards normalcy, but it has to be done at the correct pace. We can't just go back to the way we were pre-pandemic. And I know some people have said that the models are way overblown and they way over-predicted how many people are going to be infected and sick and in the hospital. Well, the models that I provided are dead on. You know, we showed worst case scenario, which that was never going to happen because SISD and Tarleton took about 18,000 kids and employees from close proximity and kept them at home. So that helped us. Strong leadership from the county and the city. Actually, stronger leadership than I've seen coming out of Austin up until that point. No doubt played a huge role in this. You know, we talk about flattening the curve. Right now in Erath County, we've got more of a blip than a curve. You know, our cases has been linear and at the bottom end of the spectrum, which is best case scenario, which is what we were all hoping to accomplish with all these non-pharmacological interventions. So, hey, we're doing a great job. When I say we, I mean y'all, basically, the county. And, you know, we talk about herd immunity, which to this point has played zero role. It will someday. But what we've had from the herd is herd compliance. Mostly people are listening to the directives that y'all have issued, and mostly people are behaving and doing what they're supposed to, and it's working. It's working all over. DFW, you know, now they're saying, their medical societies are saying that they're not going to exceed hospital capacity or ICU capacity, which is fantastic. You know, they're standing down the convention center that was going to be a accessory hospital just for COVID. So we're doing good work, but we can't quit. So that's about all I have to say at this point, unless y'all have further questions for me later.
I just want to say I appreciate, you know, I'm sure all of y'all do the same thing, but Dr. Doggett has been accessible to me and staff day and night, you know, as late as 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night, calling or texting. I appreciate your efforts and all that, and the leadership you've given in the medical community, but also the advice to this council. It's been great working with you. I appreciate that very much.
Sure, and I'm available anytime for any of you. So.
And the other thing is, I didn't get to attend the meeting yesterday with the medical staff. And so, you know, anything particular come out of that we need to address?
I don't think so, sir.
Okay. I do know that one of the biggest concerns, and I think each of the council members know that, but I wanted to say it in public so that it's out in the world too, on the World Wide Web, there you go. The biggest concern that most of the medical community had was in capacity, that thing you mentioned about the Dallas hospitals. And I do want to know that there's still some processes to set up, or some answers that the medical community has asked, but, you know, the Commissioner of State Rural Health Services has stood up and said if we got to a capacity that he would make sure that we were able to take people to other hospitals that had capacity. So that would help us if we ran into a problem in this town. We have other options to do that. And he told me to do that as day or night. And so I appreciate that a lot. And I spoke with the doctors on the call, and they all had some questions. I submitted those questions to ask, and whether I get answers back, I don't know, but the answer was still the same. I will help out. We will take care of that, which is a big relief, I think, to everybody.
And the mayor was integral to, he played a huge role in getting that set up, and I have to commend him for that. I just want to be clear, yes, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's out there. But on the other hand, I don't want people to think, hey, this is over, we can relax. I mean, we're taking measures to reopen, which we have to do. But we're also still making our disaster plan in case this thing goes sideways or things change. So we have to approach it from all angles. So even though we can see better days ahead, we're still preparing for worst case scenarios. So we're working behind the scenes with that. And Doug has some contacts, the mayor has some contacts, and he was vitally important in securing extra capacity, because that was one of the things that was keeping a lot of us physicians awake at night, was going, what are we going to do with all these people? Well, worst case scenario, DFW gets overran, we have a plan. And that's due in large part to the mayor and some of the contacts he has. So my kudos to the mayor and the council as a whole.
Anybody have any questions or comments you want to make, Dr. Doggett? We appreciate you coming this morning and presenting. Okay, next thing is I'm gonna turn it over to staff. I'm assuming it's gonna be you, Alan, or is gonna present
Yes.
our first item, which is approval of amendments to the local state disaster due to public health emergency.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as you're aware, you recently passed an emergency order on April 1st that covered till April 30th. There have been some changes in the governor's executive orders. He issued GA-16 last week that essentially began opening up businesses in the state. It was brought to staff's attention that the council was interested in perhaps considering another emergency order. We have prepared two of those for you. The one dated 4/20 is the one that you received by email the other night. It essentially changes the wording of the existing order to comply with the governor's GA-16. The other order is dated 4/21. It's a shorter version, and staff's been referring to them as the longer version, shorter version. Primary changes in that one, you'll see apply to section 2. Essentially, both of these say the same thing. One of them just says it more succinctly than the other. It essentially says that we accept or adopt executive orders 15 and 16, and should the governor issue further orders that supersede 15, 16, that we will go along with them as well.
So that, what that means then is whatever he orders, we'll change our order automatically.
That is
By
correct.
accepting
I
this
don't
tonight.
have copies. Do you have a copy?
I made a copy of it. Okay.
Stacy, you have an extra copy?
Would you run me one, Stacy, please?
Okay.
I apologize, I thought y'all had.
They're in our email.
The local changes, and I say local changes because we do have some things that are specific to Stephenville. They stay the same with the exception of the golf restrictions. Flag sticks may be replaced on the greens, but cannot be pulled by the
Is it
Golfers.
21?
It may or may not.
may not be pulled by the golfer. And the requirements on the golf carts having one rider, we've added the sentence, unless passengers are members of the same household. We've had some incidents where we've had folks have minor children who were riding with them, and we received complaints that we had two people in a cart. One of them, I believe, was a 5-year-old, and the other was a 13-year-old. The next change is on page 3 of 5, number 5, park facilities, playgrounds, sports courts, fields, public swimming areas, pavilions, and recreation hall are closed to the public. Public trails, open areas, skate park, golf course, RV camps are open to the public. Organized activities larger than 10 people, not of the same household, are prohibited. Individuals not of the same household must at all times be, as reasonably possible, maintain social distancing of at least 6 feet from any other person when using park facilities. Those are the significant changes in that one. I'll be more than happy to go over the 420 draft. Again, the feedback that we've gotten from a couple of the council members that we've talked to is that there's greater interest and they feel that the 421 draft would clarify things a little better than the longer draft, the 420 draft. It is 2 pages longer and 2 pages more of government speak.
Anybody have any questions?
So I do.
Yeah.
So if we are mirroring the governor's executive orders, I know you guys have put together a synopsis of how things play out in town, how businesses in town are impacted. How quickly after the governor issues an executive order would that synopsis, those changes be reflected so folks could you actually put out the document, the little bullet point document that Jen's been making.
Yes, sir.
How fast would we be able to address that?
We can normally get those out, depending on level of work, within 2-3 hours.
Okay.
I mean, it's a very short turnaround. Sometimes it may drift into the evening after work hours, but we try to get them out the same day.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
So,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Several businesses that are non-essential have announced that they'll be opening May 1st. This doesn't prohibit them from doing that, right?
The order from the governor lays out specific terms in which non-essential businesses can open. The one-on-one businesses, the personal interaction businesses, remain to be closed by the governor. He used the word that people shall avoid. We asked for clarification both from TML and our attorney. Our attorney gave us the most concise answer that shall is a legal term that means it will, that you must do it. And avoid means stay away from. Therefore, the public must stay away from the one-on-one businesses.
Well, I understand not hair salons and barber shops, but boutiques, gift shops, those are free to open on May the 1st. We're not keeping them from it.
They are free to open, subject to the governor's order, correct?
well, as of
Okay,
right now,
and-
the governor's order only goes through April 30th, so it will depend on what he does.
Correct. What he does next Monday.
Okay, but I sent y'all a question, I never got a response. For example, not all the non-essential businesses in this town closed. Each business apparently interpreted it according to what they thought. So the governor's order says they must offer curbside or mail delivery or delivery. But I asked that question, what about businesses that never closed? Are they going to have to go to curbside, or are they going to function as usual with customers coming in? Because how could we keep other businesses from doing the same if we're not?
The governor's order, GH 16, actually 14 through 16, allows the city to take enforcement action as it sees necessary, and which is the way that we've operated since GA 14 came out, and I see no change in the way that we've operated.
So it's up to individual businesses to decide how they interpret the order, because I noticed in this explanation we've gotten this morning, local officials may enforce the order's provisions. We don't have to enforce it. The word may is here.
Our attorney is present and can define the word may.
The problem is the governor was ambiguous, and so that leaves us in
Yeah, the
a
may-
catch-22.
The May is talking about whether or not we enforce, not whether or not the business interprets it. Really how it's how the city interprets it.
Well, I don't see how we can keep businesses from opening when other businesses never shut that are non. I've got them now.
I
Jason,
don't
go
know
to.
that we kept anybody. I don't know if we closed any business.
We haven't.
Ms. Trussell, we certainly have a plan, and it may be more appropriate to speak offline with you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Did you have one other?
I was just to clarify for the public, so what this order does is it just puts us in a position where if the governor, whether he relaxes or strengthens his orders, this will allow us to not have to meet in order for local businesses to fall under that guideline. We
That
don't
is
have to
correct.
change our order every time he changes his.
That is correct. If he has indicated that he is going to have broader openings in the economy on Monday, this will not. This will allow those to take place in our community without the council having to meet and say, we agree with the governor.
But it doesn't oppose or prohibit us from meeting if we want to do something more stringent.
That is correct.
Okay, so we have an option.
You do.
And this, okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the 421 version of the amendments to the emergency declaration as presented.
That you, Alan? Is it?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Can we have a moment of discussion prior to?
Yes, we
moving
can.
on? One of the things that we have done in this, and I apologize for not pointing that out, is that we do not have an expiration date in this order. The council, it's section 8 on page 3. The council can choose to leave this until further notice, until it's either rescinded, just with language, until it's either rescinded, superseded, or amended pursuant to applicable law. Those options are available. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We've talked about so many different things.
It's a moving target, we know.
Yeah. In section 6, subsection 9, it says that all public meetings will comply with the Texas Open Meetings Act as, anyway, the last sentence is all regular business meetings of the Stephenville City Council held on the first Tuesday of each month are suspended for the duration of this order. We would like to keep that language in here, but begin moving to having our regular meeting dates on the first and third Tuesdays at this point. That's more of an informational thing for the council than needing addressing in this.
So at this point, what you're saying, there's no expiration date on this, but since if the governor's order is lifted, if he just completely withdrew his, this order has no more validity, does it?
That is correct.
So we do away. So when he declares it's over, ours is over.
The only thing that we would have to come back for are the local things that we've, like required the monitoring of the temperatures and the golf course issues and the other restrictions that we've placed.
I can't make a motion, but I'd like for us to consider the possibility that we amend the motion then to say that also that the whole ordinance is done once the governor's is over. That way we don't have to come back and address them specifically. What do you
Correct.
think?
I'm perfectly happy for that to be a part of the original motion.
Would someone offer a friendly motion to make that amendment?
I move we amend the motion by adding that, this is effective until, best language, that this remains in full force and effect, contingent upon orders from the governor, future
Okay.
orders from the governor.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, we're voting on the amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion, all opposed? Gerald, I can't see you, so I couldn't tell if you voted. He must be on mute. Okay, the motion, now we're gonna vote on the motion as amended?
I have a question.
Yes, sir, you bet.
The section 9 that we talked about, the last part of that sentence, unless called by the mayor, that covers us if the mayor wants to call us into session at the regular meeting time on the first and third Tuesday. That still covers us for that, so
Absolutely.
that could remain in there intact, and still we could do as we needed to do for called meetings or regular meetings, either one.
Yes, sir, that's our recommendation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Proceed to vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Can hear Gerald.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Move to item number 2, which is consider approval of expenditures related to the restaurant program. Turn it over to staff.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, some time ago, probably 3-4 weeks ago, you approved spending city funds for a program to stimulate the use of restaurants in Stephenville. It was kind of decided at that time that we would use a de minimis amount of $25 that would go to our residential water utility customers. The original motion was to take the funds from the utility funds, but in talking with our auditor and clarifying it with Monica, The auditor would feel more comfortable if this was taken from general fund rather than from the utility fund, being that the utility fund was for a very specific purpose to ensure the health and safety of the water and sewer systems. He also said that what he would do if we did it from the utility funds is at the end of the year, he would just move it into the general fund with the due tos and froms and so forth. I spoke with Monica. As of September 30th of last year, we had $7,288,833 in the general fund balance. Our cash on hand is higher than that due to the influx of property taxes that we have in February and the month subsequent to February. Staff would recommend that we consider taking these funds from the general fund. We currently have approximately 4,600 residential customers, which is fewer than we had estimated previously. At $25 a piece, that's somewhere in the neighborhood of $115,000, $120,000. You have a copy of a postcard that would be sent out to our customers. It would have the account number on it, so we would know which customer actually claimed the $25. The one question that we have was brought up by one of the council members. Originally, it was if somebody goes to one of the restaurants and spends $15, the restaurant would turn in for $15. It was recommended by one of the council members in a offline conversation that perhaps we just go ahead and honor it for the $25 and look at that as a tip or whatever for the restaurant. Staff is asking direction on that issue. We're ready to proceed. We think we can get this out in about 10 days, a week to 10 days actually is what we were told. And so we would like the blessing to proceed with this.
So what you're asking at this point is for us to amend our previous direction to take the money from one fund out of another fund. Would you tell us, you said the balance in the fund was $7-something million. How much that's obligated?
I asked for the unobligated amount.
That's the amount. So we have.
That's the
Okay,
amount
so
I
we have
was
$7
given.
million unobligated funds. Okay, and the issue there was your auditor is concerned about getting it from the utility fund. I can tell you he's wrong, but he's our auditor, so we won't let him do what he wants to do with it.
All right.
The issue is
Yes,
we have
sir.
the funds there to do it. So that's what you're asking, is to amend the order in one respect to change what fund it's coming out of, and two, you're asking for direction, which would come in an amendment as well to say, do we want to just use the $25? Whether I buy $10 worth of food or $100, the restaurant gets $25 from the city.
Correct.
Is there any question, or anybody want to say anything about that? Ask questions.
And blessing to proceed.
And blessings to proceed. Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. Number one, would it not be easier for staff to monitor if they bring in a $25 card and they automatically are receiving $25 instead of trying to ask for tickets and numbers and other things to justify the expense? If they have a $25 card, wouldn't it just be easier for the staff to give them $25 as far as staff load and work time?
I believe so.
So
Yes,
that
sir.
would be the simplest way.
I believe so, yes, sir.
And in my opinion, that would be the best way for the restaurant, because if I spend $15 and I want to give them $25, that's a tip, or it's a bonus, or it's whatever they want to do with it, correct?
I presume so, yes, sir.
Okay, that would be my preference on that. My second question is, if 60% of these come back, 70% of them come back, would it be possible to come back at another point later, maybe when the recovery gets started, to do this same program again, to give those restaurants a second boost perhaps?
I think that was the original
Or maybe some other
intent.
program, if it's not this one, some other program.
I think that was the original intent.
Okay, okay.
Anybody else?
Will there be is there a deadline for the restaurants to turn these in for reimbursement?
The
I see
program
June
goes,
30th for residents to use them, but
Most likely, they'll come in during the time that they're used, probably once a week or so. But I think we give them a week or 10 days after June 30th. Well, give them through the 4th of July, probably give them 15 days to get them turned into us, or they're null and void.
Should we print that on the, so
Yes,
they're
sir.
clear that?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? So you'd like to make a motion?
Mayor, I'd make the motion, number one, that we change the source of funding from the water wastewater fund to the general fund to support the issuance of these cards, and then to issue these cards as presented with the expiration date of June 30 on the card, and then possibly somewhere on there, a July 15th deadline to redeem those cards.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion? Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 There we go, Gerald, good. Motion passes. Do you have enough direction now, Alan?
Yes, sir, we do.
Next item is consider approval of the loan grant program for personal services businesses that were closed by the executive order.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the city of Stephenville has approximately 60 personal, what we've referred to as one-on-one businesses in the city. We were having a conversation, or actually a Zoom meeting, I don't know, a week or 10 days ago with the Chamber of Commerce and some other folks on the restaurant program, as a matter of fact. And it was mentioned during that conversation that a lot of the one-on-one businesses were hurting because they did not qualify for the 3P put out by the government. Now, some of them will, some of them won't. What led to where we are now is we had a conversation with Mr. Sanford and our staff about the possibility of doing a loan/grant program somewhat patterned after the 3P that would make loans to these businesses in the amount of not to exceed $2,500 that would help them bridge the time that they're closed. Subsequently, as we're government, things change on a regular basis. So one of the things that was brought up is, what if they qualify for the 3P and don't take it? What if they don't qualify for the 3P now and the next time around they do? One of the things that we discussed was that if they qualify for 3P and don't take it, then if they have taken the $2,500 from us, or whatever the grant amount is, or loan amount is, then they have to pay it back with an interest rate, and I would recommend an interest rate somewhere around 6-7%, whatever. I mean, that's certainly up to you guys. Also, if we would require them to apply for the 3P once the new bill is signed by the president, and if they qualify for 3P, they would be given a time period, a matter of days after they receive their funds, to reimburse the city. This is not to go into addition with what the federal government is giving businesses. It's to help businesses that were closed through no fault of their own, through an executive order by the governor, and honestly, some of our orders, gives them a chance maybe to bridge the month, 6 weeks that they're having to be closed. I think CETA voted today to participate in the program. Just to be absolutely clear, at this point, we have not decided on an application process or an award criteria, and we're trying to set up a meeting next week with CETA and us to.
Do you have an amount?
I'm
Do
sorry.
you have an aggregate amount?
The aggregate amount in the first round would be $60,000. Again, the grants, I think, would not exceed $2,500. That would give us 24 of those grants.
Just to be clear, the grants wouldn't be repaid, they're not a loan, right?
They would go out, much like the 3P, they would go out as a loan. There would be criteria And and I'm just talking off the top of my head. Maybe once everything is open, they have to be open for 90 days. There's some criteria like that. I think that it should be restricted to what we refer to as one-on-one businesses. For example, the barbershops and hair salons. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So, similar stipulations and restrictions to the PPP in terms of how the money could be used?
Yes, sir.
Through this program?
Yes.
And that would be a part of the application process, that
Yes,
would
sir.
be identified?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none. Gerald?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move that we move forward, move forward with this program from the city. And does this need to include the CETA to approve their actions today too?
Things as well, we could do it all night together if you want.
I think it'd be
If we-
cleaner to do it all at once.
If we can, I move that we approve the program, $60,000 in the form of a grant, a loan grant program. And
Does your motion include then that
It-
we allow the staff and see to come up with those other stipulations we talked about?
it does.
We have motion and a second. Gerald made the motion and Mark seconds it. Further discussion?
Or if we see some success in this, and of course, the PPP had some, which is the guidelines, pretty easy to follow to turn that into a grant. And that's what we're really trying to do here. If we have some success with that and see that there's more need, we can come back and add funds to this if
$7
needed.
million?
Absolutely. I'm hoping that we come back
Monica, I
and
didn't say
every
that on
one of these
purpose.
businesses qualify.
I agree.
She's in her office right now. Don't say that.
She's probably watching.
I know she
Either
is.
may or may
Yeah, she just texted me
Agree
and
to
said,
add
hush.
more funds,
CETA can't, but we could come back at some point.
But they may not.
Right, but we could come back at some point and help more.
Absolutely.
The only other thing I would say is just to be clear that and I completely support this program, it's great, because these people did have to close down through no fault of their own, but I just want to be clear that we're not this is not intended to set a precedent that we're gonna bail people out every time something happens. I'm all for returning taxpayer dollars to the taxpayers that are struggling through no fault of their own, but we just do need to be clear that we're not gonna come up with a new program every time we turn around.
To steal some of Mr. Sanford's talking points probably today, this is a hand up, not a handout.
Other discussion?
One other thing,
Go ahead, Gerald.
with regard to the discussion, it was mentioned that we look at a 6 to 7% interest rate. That's mild high, don't you think?
I'm sorry?
We should be talking about an interest rate in the 1 to 2% range at the max.
Is the way the ordinance has been, the motion was made, is that gonna be left up to the city staff to make a recommendation?
I mean, PPP was 1%, so I agree with Gerald on that it should not be.
So we'll just why don't we just, if that's okay with motion, that we just leave it up to staff to come up with that number is, and let them just report to us.
And we understand the direction that the council wants us to go. That's
Okay?
correct.
Okay,
You had some more-
fine.
I just wanted to say, in my opinion, these are unprecedented times. And we as a city have never set the intention of the council that we would bail any business out for any reason. And I think this is such an unusual circumstance that I don't think, in my opinion at least, we're not setting a precedent. We're just trying to aid these businesses and help them keep their doors open. Anything that happens in the future is gonna be totally different than this, and I hope we don't see this again. But I don't think that's gonna be an issue. That's just my opinion though. But I recognize what you're
Well-
saying. I agree
And
wholeheartedly.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is strange times.
yes.
It is.
Comments, suggestions? Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 4, consider approval of Stevensville Type B Economic Development Authority's Restart Program. Ms. Sanford, would you come to the podium?
Howdy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you all for your service and everything that you're doing. I appreciate everybody, including staff, in that. I know it's difficult, but I appreciate the work. It is difficult because, as was just mentioned, it is unprecedented times, and so we make decisions, and we do it for the very best purposes that we can. One of the other things that we have said in our meetings, and we've had multiple meetings over the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so, in addition to what Mr. Barnes just said about no handout but a hand up, we have also been following a little bit with what the governor has said, actually, which is to protect our lives, or protect lives but restore livelihoods. At some point, these businesses will be opened, and not only opened as is and more so, but completely open. We are sure of that, even if some of the rules change, just like they did after 9/11 and after other things that have happened in our past. We know that that's a possibility, but we also know that as they open, we have to be prepared. So we have put together a program. We call it Restart, which is Restoring Stephenville, Assist, Relieve, and Transform. It's a program that we put together after listening to probably close to, well, we started it with just a few businesses, and now been talking specifically and directly with over 100 businesses in our community, not outside, but in our community, of the needs that they have. We've been following along to put together the best plan that would meet their needs initially, based on resources, based on timing, based on a lot of other qualifications. In addition, we've been talking and keeping up with the governor's office, Congressman Williams' office, the TEDC, the IEDC, Economic Development Alliance, the Texas Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and our colleagues across the entire country to find out best practices, legal practices, as well as other ways to utilize resources that will be most beneficial to our businesses. Our Restart program has initially 3 phases. Well, it's our first phase of Restart. It has 3 components to it. We have added the 4th, which you guys have already approved, which has to do with the loan grant program we just talked about. But the first 3 are as follows. The first one, talking to the businesses, we wanted to address the PPE and supply issue that was in our community. Now, we thought, as with all meetings, we started broad. Does this mean ventilators here in some of the medical staff and other things? Does it mean BiPAP machines? Does it mean, what does that mean? What does it look like? Does it mean masks and gloves? We didn't know. Talking to the businesses with some of the restrictions placed on them, with sanitizers and thermometers, those came to the forefront time and time and time and time again. And those are also very difficult to find. And so we have been able to secure some sanitizer. We actually delivered last night, we picked up last night to be delivered the rest of this week, 55 gallons of sanitizer created specifically for this purpose. We also have ordered some, we start off with oral thermometers with a bunch of covers, but those don't last very long, obviously, and have one-time use. So we've been able to find some temporal thermometers, and we have ordered those as well. The initial batch we have been able to fund out of our own without having to come to you guys, but the board was very specific about knowing that this will only go so far, and that we would want to be able to continue to reach out to our businesses who might have a need. And so therefore, we have requested, the board has approved, the CETA board has approved, and are requesting from council to approve as well, an additional $20,000 that we can use for that piece of the program, for that phase of the program, $20,000 to help with additional supplies in the PPE world, if you will, to be able to help our businesses that are in need of those kinds of resources.
I just want to interject something, Jeff, if you don't mind.
Please.
Alan and I received an email last night, or yesterday afternoon, from a business in town that was willing to reach out and buy some wholesale PPE. As a local business, I think we ought to announce who that is on our website or something, thanking him for doing that. So y'all may use them as a resource, because he had certain items he could do, but it's big.
Which is fantastic.
$750 kind of quantities he could purchase for it. And so, and I think once we get that worked out, I think we ought to make that announcement, Alan, that he was one of the citizens stepped up.
That's correct.
And I think that is important. When we started this process, we are using local vendors, by the way, to come up with those resources. So anybody else that has one, and we're seeing this, you guys have mentioned it before in your meetings, we're seeing this more and more. People are coming up with different things, whether they're making masks, whether they're doing some other things. We're seeing that time and time again from our local citizens and businesses, quite frankly. And let's make no mistake, some of our businesses are actually doing quite well, and they're with a heart of gold coming out and saying we will help our fellow businesses in some of these other programs. So we're utilizing their resources. There are websites, there are other things, Keep Americans Working, those kinds of things that are out there to help people to advertise and so forth. But back to my program, or the CEDAS program on Restart, we will certainly make note of that on the PPE, but we will be requesting, and I'll go through all of them before we ask for the official vote, but the $20,000 will help us with that particular phase. The second part actually is not going to be a request of any funding, at least not at this point, and that is to address and improve the communication of available business-specific resources. We've been asked by our businesses to just tell us what to do, just tell us where to go, just tell us what is out there and what is best for me. And we have found that we've helped businesses to be hooked up with very specific resources. The ones that have been mentioned already, the two main ones, were the EIDL, or Emergency Injury Disaster Loan, as well as the PPP, or the Payment Protection Plan. Those were the two main ones that are out there, but there have been many other ones that have come out. A TWU grant for women, cosmetology-based things. There's been some other grants that have been out and about, and we've been able to get those resources to people. They've just simply needed, how do I sign up for this? Maybe they don't, like maybe one or two of our council members, maybe don't know how to go on the online. And
Okay.
Why did you look at me?
Let's stay on
I was
track.
looking beyond. I was looking at the Stephenville. No, I'm sorry. No, but to be fair, a lot of people in our community, we can't assume from anyone that it is as easy. And Brandon, you mentioned that some of these things are quite easy to fill out, and you're right. Some of them are easier, but it is intimidating if it's not something that you're used to doing. And so we've been able to help some people to be able to go through that process and sign up. In addition, we have a regular meeting with the SBDC almost on a daily basis locally here. Mr. Bill Everton has done a phenomenal job of helping businesses to try to do those things. We've hosted webinars, we've hosted podcasts, we've hosted radio shows, other things together to try to get that information out, in addition to social media and so forth. And so we have a very large portion of our time that's being dedicated to assisting businesses through the communication and information piece. And to help some that are, most of them, they can, once they get on it, they're doing it themselves. They have the information. We're not trying to get involved with their finances and all those kinds of things. We would instead just want to make sure they understand that there are some resources available. And many of them, we have actually had businesses in tears coming back to us just saying simply thank you. That's all I needed. I just needed a helping hand to get to the next available resource. So I've been pleased with that. The third one that we have on our Restart program, the third point, and this one will have a monetary value associated with it. What we've asked, or what we've been told rather, by our businesses is that, okay, we know that there's some programs out there right now to help us maybe get through this bridge time period, this gap between when we had to close, or when we chose to close, or when we had to reduce our operations to that point when we have to go back up into full operation. And there's a gap there. And what we have not known is if that's a 30-day gap. It's already been, I guess, into our 5 weeks or so. Or is this going to be a 3-month, or is this going to be a 6-month, or what is that going to be? We don't really know that yet. What we do know is that at some point we will open up, and these folks have asked us, well, how do we get those customers back into our building? We need some help with that. As you recall, both the CEDA board and then ultimately the council through our last budget cycle approved a software program. We call it Buxton, but there's other pieces within that Buxton software, but that's just for your memory piece. That is initially, when things were going great, it was a retail recruitment tool. But there were some other pieces of this that were helpful to our businesses, and one was a retention piece that was in there. Well, we have gone back to that retention piece because that is what is needed the most right now, and it's called the LSMX. We will actually have another name to it to make it easier for everyone. But in this program, it helps our businesses to analyze psychographically their desired customers, or at least those that have the most opportunity to purchase from that particular business. In other words, rather than blanket advertising out there to just any and everyone, this actually is a target marketing piece that is created fully online through this program. Now, with our purchase last October, it came with a certain amount of licenses. And we went back to them and said, you know what, this is not enough for our businesses. Every one of our businesses might need this. And we were able to negotiate a situation to remove those licenses for our Stephenville businesses, every single business in our community. And so we were going to be able to use that. So I'm not going to need funding for that. We were able to negotiate that through our office. But there is another piece. Most of this advertising is done through Facebook or social media. There are some direct mail pieces, and actually we found that out. I think Mr. McClinton asked that of me because not everybody is on Facebook, right? And not everybody is on some of these. So there are some other options to be able to utilize some advertising that's still targeted, still direct, but outside of the realm of social media. we will make this available. We had several examples given to us, primarily out of the Metroplex area. And in that, it was, if anybody has advertised on Facebook, you know that the costs are not extreme. They're quite low, but they are quite effective. And so we're working through that. They did a complete refresh on Friday. We are timing this out. The program itself will not only help someone create the ad, it will also help them develop exactly what their message is, pictures, the timing of it, everything that can go out, and is quite significant. Our board has asked for about $500, up to $500 per business in additional help for their advertising, and has asked for, actually they approved and has asked the council for confirmation of the approval of an additional $50,000 to go into that advertising piece to help whenever we launch that piece of the program.
So it'll be up to 100 businesses at $500.
Yes, sir, initially. But the reality is, yes, if they all use the entire
So I
piece.
just want to make sure when we get the motion, you're looking for $50,000 approval for spending up to $500 per person.
Correct, yes, sir. That's what I'm asking for. I will tell you that probably as the guidelines continue to get written, every example we had, the most we ever even saw was about $270. And so we do believe that it'll extend beyond the 100 businesses if
Sure,
need be.
but at $500 it would cover up to.
That's
100
correct, yes,
businesses.
sir. And then, of course, the fourth piece you've already approved, but with the matching city funds, or the matching funds for the city's program on the businesses that were forced to close down, which was the additional 30. Altogether, it's about $150,000 right now on this piece of the phase, plus the additional. That does not include some of the waived fees, which of course is a value without an actual funding piece, but that helps us to get some immediate help to our businesses. As far as timing, we can get most of these things started very soon. We're kind of timing out the marketing aspect of this with what happens with some of the openings. It doesn't make a lot of sense to put those out there right now if they're not open, or if their customers aren't allowed to go into the stores, or if we don't even know what those restrictions might look like. So we think that in 30 days or so, we'll be able to sort of put that together.
Randy, is it okay if we made a motion to approve the whole thing, other than that one item we've already approved all at one time? And then I'm just going to ask the council to give permission to let the city board work with city staff and work out the details of that as for whatever our questions are, if that's okay. So is there anything else you want to mention before we make a motion?
No, sir. I think those are the three. Again, it's the Restart program. I think the biggest piece of that, sanitizer will already go out initially. Thermometers will go out next week, and those are not part of because they've already been funded. Those will not be part of it, but we'll continue on with what the needs are of the business
So
community.
Stacy, you know what we're asking for on a motion? If we just say the motion to approve what the presentation today, is that okay?
The restart
Before we
program.
do that, could I ask a question?
You bet.
Because
Oh, we're gonna get that. I just wanna make sure that the ordinance is, is that all we're gonna need, Stacy?
As long as y'all are all clear on what you're voting
Okay.
on, then I'll make it.
All right, well then, in case we're not unclear, let's make sure that. we
Yeah, I
have
wanna make
questions.
sure.
Don't have any changes.
As long as there's no changes to it, yes.
Do we need to make a motion to amend the CETA budget? Is that?
I think we do, I believe we can amend the budget one time, every quarter, once, every 6 months or whatever, to transfer funds like we do the city staff, I would assume.
Yeah, part of
You
it,
agree with that?
Yes.
It'd be a motion
to approve the
expenditures.
expenditures, that's all you're asking.
that's
Yes.
it, because we're not allowed to do
Right.
that amount.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Wait a minute.
yes?
Yeah, go ahead,
No,
Jerry.
wait.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the expenditures of up to $50,000 for the CETA programs.
Well,
That's only part of
no,
it.
that's not the right number.
Okay.
It's 20,000 and 50,000.
And that was what my question was about.
Ah, okay.
We've already
Well,
approved
let's
this.
amend it to that.
That was-
Not
that's what I
amend
thought.
it,
We
but
already
let's just change it to the entire amount, which would be 70,000, right?
Let's just say, why don't we just say whatever Jeff brought to us and presented a minute ago, make it a lot easier, so us
Can we
getting all the
just say
details.
we
I move we approve it.
the
Well, motion we approve it. Was that your
And
question?
I second
Yeah.
that we approve the restart program.
Okay,
I
so
still
Gerald-
have a question.
Okay, I'll get to you in just a second.
Okay.
Gerald made the motion and Carla seconded it. Questions? Yes, ma'am. You said you had a question.
No, I don't.
No, she
No,
just
I
said
have a
the
question.
Restart program is what she
Okay,
was
all
saying.
right. Yes, sir.
So,
I'll get to you sooner or later, sir.
okay, so you listed $100,000 worth of expenditures, including the grant, but you said your board has approved 150?
Well, the other piece was the licenses, which we thought we were going to pay for. up to, which was a round number of $50,000. It would actually potentially be higher than that. But because we were able to negotiate that out, there's no funding mechanism in there that has to go with it.
So your
because
board
it's
approved
private.
up to 150, but it's only gonna require this other amount.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Just don't confuse me.
I'm sorry. I know I'll speak in slower.
I just want to make sure, I didn't have remember the company's name right up. I mentioned that earlier, and I've sent you and Ashley the email. Is Texas Trucks Direct made that offer to purchase PPE for the city or our functions.
Okay, that's good
So
to
I
know.
just want to recognize them and say thanks for what you did.
And there's also some other additional grants to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation and some others. They're up to $5,000 grants. Obviously, we're going to continue to push people towards available monies that are out there to have a little bit less burden on the city. However, that's when, with Mr. Barnes, and we'll try to fill in the gaps where we can to help our businesses.
Any other questions? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We're now going to go to the fifth item, which is a discussion or presentation about Project CS and Pigtail. Now, I just want to mention to the council, we are going to discuss them again in executive session because there's issues that may be brought up. I'd prefer that we ask questions in executive session so we don't put Jeff in a situation having to say, I can't discuss that right now. Is that all right with everybody? All right.
Don't you like to see him squirm?
You are going
There's
to
a lot
make me
of
squirm.
things, there's a lot of things I
pretty,
like to say
pretty
about him,
fun.
but that's not one of them today.
Hey,
Project
listen,
CS
thank
and
you.
Project Pigtail.
Well, I appreciate it. One of the things that, in addition to helping our existing businesses, it's also important as part of our, we have about 8 or 9 projects that are going on as all of this is going on. And one of those things, of course, is staying in contact with those on a daily, weekly basis to ensure that, number one, even as things are affected economically, that we are staying in enough contact that we keep them top of mind. We want to make sure that Stephenville is top of mind. Obviously, some of these have not been released, so we'll have to go over them in executive session, Doug, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor. But there are a couple of them that I wanted to talk about because they're already public. One is Washington Commons, what we've been calling Project CS, but Washington Commons. It is a full retail project. And of course, retail has been hit pretty hard in this world, but I will tell you there are some very good things that have happened. They did agree with the sellers on some extensions, some short extensions, just due to some other things. Actually, they were asked by the sellers in one case to extend simply because of an issue or two that came up with the trailer park piece. However, that's being worked out and all is good on that. We have full commitment from Project CS, or from the developers of Washington Commons, full commitment. Hobby Lobby has been strong, considering all things that have been going on in this country. Part of it is they don't have a big online presence, so they've stayed open. And in fact, I've gotten criticized in many of the towns for staying open. However, it's helped their bottom line and are very strong with our community. Some of the other ones are struggling a little bit right now because of just that. After 2008, many of our discount folks, and I can't mention all the names because they've not been released, but some of the folks that were involved are, they did really well after people flocked to their style of store because of the timing of the economy and everything. Well, they've done really well, but have not had to have an online presence. And so some of them have just started some of that online presence. They're trying to take over what's been lost. But let me tell you what the developers have told us. Specifically, they have said that in terms of the entire project, the 2021 stores are safe. They're not even worried at all about 2021 stores. As you know, ours are 2021 stores, even though the groundbreakings would have been this year. They're more concerned about their 2020 stores because they're either in progress as far as construction, or they have been are in some other phase of operation where their people might be furloughed, et cetera, et cetera. And so they're less concerned about our stores that haven't even started construction yet. There's a full commitment from the developers on these, as I mentioned earlier, and it looks to me like we'll have maybe a 90-day slide is what they're saying right now, rather than a February or March delivery, which is what they initially had intended and what we had been reporting. It may be closer to the summertime. And of course, this is fluid. You mentioned that word earlier, Mr. Mayor. It's very fluid, and as the economy, depending on how long it takes for everybody to open back up, is going to depend on how long it takes for them
the
to.
purposes of public, you know, I've heard which stores are quote not coming now. There's only so many stores we've announced. Would you announce those stores, and are they
We've only announced 2 stores,
which are,
Ulta and Hobby Lobby,
and are they still coming?
and they're still coming.
Okay, I want to make sure that was in the
Yeah.
presentation.
As of today, I can't speak for tomorrow or 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now, but as of today, they are both still coming
Okay, I just want to
100%.
make sure that's out there on the recording.
And there has been absolutely zero indication from either of them that they will be delayed other than what the normal construction would be in terms of that. We've been meeting as well with the construction folks. As the city would know as well, they've already started turning in some of the necessary things. They've spent an awful lot of money on drawings, they've hired their site work contractor, they've hired their general contractor. So in terms of the overall project, they're still planning to move forward. Now, initially, we thought they would they start the construction in March. That's what we announced. And then we were hoping for April at the latest. Well, we know that that's not going to happen. We believe that it's going to be in the early part of the summer. Again, it's all dependent upon what we do locally from the economic standpoint. And to some extent, that will be the most effect on the construction piece. The reality is that buys them time, because it takes nearly a year to build all of these. That will buy them some time on some of these other retailers that are hoping to be a part of this. And as that comes into play, then we'll know what their status is economically. I can't speak on behalf of those that are national chains. They're not based here in Stephenville. If it was just based here in Stephenville, it'd be a little easier. But we also have the advantage of having them be some national chains as well.
Okay.
There's the other one that, there are 2 other ones actually mentioned. One is Project Pigtail, which was our Wendy's. As you can see, if anybody drives down Washington, you can see that each and every day there's something new and exciting going on with it, and they are planning to open. They look like they'll have a mid-May construction completion. They hope to open in June. One of the things that they have told us specifically is they are only going to open if they can open as a full restaurant. They will not open just like some of ours have turned just to curbside or to drive-through. They won't do that. They will open up as a full operating restaurant. So that will delay their opening dependent upon what the rules are from us or the governor or whomever makes that decision. So, but you've seen it visually that they're doing that. The other one I did want to mention because it's right in that same area and it is a construction project is the Edge Apartments. They're on Washington as well. You see that construction going on each day also. They're hoping to put appliances in July and be ready for the fall as if nothing else is happening. We don't know what the schools are ultimately going to do. They have already signed a number of leases. And, I don't know where that is as of today because obviously we don't know what the school situation is going to be. But they're continuing to open or to build as if they are opening for full service for this fall. And then, of course, there's Aldi. That's that too.
I appreciate that. It's good for the public to hear that because I think I've heard a lot of what's happening. And go ahead.
May I mention also, sir, that there are just in the last week we have been talking with 3 different hospitality folks. We've been talking to retail, biomass, industry, and industry is crazy because it has production has fallen in the industrial sector more than any time since 1946, and yet we have folks that are looking our way in industry as well as residential, all still looking to see how they can make an investment in Stephenville.
Well, what we talked about today, everybody here knows this. But I had a call yesterday from one of the larger businesses in Stephenville, from both sales and numbers of employees, and was giving support to what we have done so far and what we're doing today, and said, just tell everybody thank you, and everybody in this room will know who it was, but just told me that this has affected his business by 50% gross sales since we've started. So I mean, this has hurt everybody from the little bitty guy that we shut down because of the ordinances, all the way to the bigger business as well, and so it's had a big effect on everybody.
Well, true, and as the people get furloughed, and as we said about the unemployment going to 13.5%, 22 million in one week applied for benefits. These are affecting families significantly, and so it's not just the businesses, but the actual families that are being affected by not having a paycheck anymore. So,
Okay, in compliance with the provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Law, Subchapter D, Government Code, Vernon's Texas Codes, annotated in accordance with Section 551.087, deliberating regarding economic development negotiations, Project CS, Blue, Charlton Crossings, Pigtail, and Viking. Call ourselves into executive session.